Guys and girls, hey look, welcome to my channel. My name is EJ Hot. That's my stage name when I'm rapping or rocking on the mic. And my government name is EJ, initials, and my name is Simba Kushinda, Professor Simba Kushinda. And today's topic from the channel Astro Voodoo, my channel. Hit the like button because I'm quite sure you're going to go ahead and like everything that I bring to you in order to try to attempt to educate you guys on the powers that's inside of you, and it could kind of sway people away from more or less a religious way of thinking, more into a more humanitarian single source, so we can definitely try to combat this wickedness that's in the world today. Now, I'm not going to say any names or about movie stars. This channel is not about that. This channel doesn't point any fingers. This channel does not debate whose God is bigger than whose and who's in this, that, and other. This is not a debate channel. We're in dire circumstances right now as a people. So that we got to understand that us fighting one another, all of this infighting, needs to stop. In order for us to beat our enemy, you got to know your enemy. But first of all, this lesson here, astrology, is just a step of many. I believe I have quite a few versions to give to you, quite a few parts. And this is part one of many aspects that will assist us in overcoming these powers that be. So I advise you to listen closely, sit back, relax, enjoy the PowerPoint, and this is part one in the series of astrology presented through Astro Voodoo, Professor Kushinda, and let us begin. Okay, now let's start this off with the history of astrology. Now, astrology has been around for quite some time. It's hard to kind of pinpoint an exact date as to when it began. But it's dealing with the study of the stars. We're dealing with the study from the planets. So our planetary, what you could call our planetary viewpoint, our perception that we have towards the stars has been mapped out for centuries and millenniums, before time itself, because those stars have been able to predict particular people's personalities, the weather, you name it, events. These stars have a significant role in our existence, so we must understand that. So as we move on, I'm going to go ahead and attempt to educate you guys on where astrology is and where it came from. Okay. First of all, I want you guys to know who I am. I've been an astrology student for over 30 years. I've been a practitioner of particular metaphysical arts, particularly the Kemetic spirituality version, for quite some time now. I've been a vegan, one with nature, devoid of any animal flesh coming to my mouth, for about 20 years. My purpose is to try to get you guys on the same page, to get you guys to understand that nature is our friend. And the more that we reverence what the Creator has put in front of us, the more luck will come our way. But we got to understand that we got to disregard all of these illusions, all of these people out here with material things trying to sway you in the wrong direction. And then some of them might succeed. But yet and still, I want you to know that God is real, the Creator is real, and what's going on in the world today is straight opposite of what nature is. Okay, so I was born with a purpose, as you can see on the slide, to elevate the spiritual understanding of the masses throughout the world. So I know my purpose. I know why my calling, so to speak, what I was put on this earth to do. And then that's to fulfill that calling and give you guys the real meat and potatoes. Instead of beating around the bush, the truth is what I'm here to reveal. So once you accept something different from the mundane, which is conditioned to be normal, and open up your mind to understand how astrology works for your benefit, that's the goal of this series. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that much. So that's this introductory video. I'm just here to prepare you for what's to come. There's so much to come. I am excited. I am delighted. I am overwhelmed. There's so much to come. But I'm going to go ahead and give you, bits and pieces. So I don't want to overwhelm you too soon. Okay, so let's go on to the next. Okay, so I'm discussing right now the history of astrology. Now, astrology, as I stated in the opening, it's been around a very long time. I mean, for millenniums. Now, the first to do astrology was in Chaldea, the birth in Babylon, the area which we call today Iraq. You know, a lot of those artifacts date back to the time in which these guys were practicing astrology. Now, some of you guys might have heard a little bit what's going on in ancient Babylon, and it's ironic how the Talmud and a lot of different metaphysical studies in religion have their roots in ancient Babylon. Chaldean mystery system. This was a system put together by certain people behind the scenes that would map out the particular stars. The astronomy, astrology, all of that was forbidden because they knew that it had its beginnings and endings. And the thing is that they replaced this science with mythology. It's not that the ancients worshipped giants in the sky. They just had personifications of specific elements within the world, and these personifications sometimes were in human form or animal form. Is how they say seem fit. And Egyptian connection to the stars, they had a profound connection. In the tombs, you see stars above your head. That will represent the firmament. That will represent the sky. You see stars above your head. And then in the tombs, you can also see them on boats where you have stars behind them. Was just a personification of the afterlife and how they floated through there. And then also it has this astrological and astronomical views that can definitely be debated for time and time again and again in order to try to decipher just pieces of what might be the truth, because a lot of that was lost. And a lot of that was lost to who? The Greeks and the Romans. And those are the ones that pretty much started the European civilization. Before the Greeks and the Romans, Europe actually had no existence. There was no history. There was nothing to definitely pinpoint what was on. They had worshipped what we call mythological beings, where they would attribute abnormal, supernatural beings to what they would say would be the forces of nature. And then that's a whole nother slide, but yet and still, the Greeks and the Romans, they came up with what we call today Western astrology. Primarily the Greeks that took over Egypt. Now, there were various uses of astrologies in the ancient world. Even from far east to far west. And we have documentation that can definitely prove all that. Again, we can definitely move on with that in other videos, and I will definitely elaborate on that much more. Just hang with me. You're going to learn a lot. Okay, so this is the astrological time frame. We go deep and deep into how it all began. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's hard to pinpoint an exact date, because when it came up on the scene, that's when it was, far as in the western eyes, it could have been here billions of years before the Greeks and Romans got a hold of it. It's hard to say, and I think that has been around a very long time. So if you look back, you can definitely see that it's so precise. Astrology, when you map out the stars and then you equate that to one's personality, they have dictionaries, encyclopedias, all of this based on this science, this metaphysical science we call astrology. Just wanted to let you know that. And then I want to let you know this too. Since it was mapped out so precisely, and it was definitely carried out for millenniums and years that we can't even count. Well, who knows? This is where religion started. The movement of the planets, the movement of the stars, the sun and the moon, the 12 months of the year, the 12 hours on the clock, the 12 disciples of Jesus, the 12 tribes of Israel come from the 12 signs of the zodiac. Now everybody know their zodiac sign. If I ask you, what's your sign? 9 times out of 10 you will tell me your sign. You know your sign, and then even some people even try to predict what a sign can do and cannot do, what they're capable of doing. Their strengths, their weaknesses. So let's go ahead and move on as this discussion progresses. Okay, and now the birth of astrology, as I explained to you, was in Babylon years ago, around the Hammurabi Code. These are years ago. This is like 3000, 3200 BC. There are inscriptions. There's proof and evidence that astrology was practiced in its most prehistoric form in Babylon before it surfaced anywhere else. But I'm quite sure there's something to that. Now, it all started in Babylon, and then according to, this archaeological research, as we show on the screen, the lion, and we show on the screen other remains from that time on a ziggurat with, it looks like a ziggurat form type of hill with a statue on it representing the animal. It all started in Babylon and then spread throughout the world. So everywhere else it started popping up all of a sudden. So we don't know where we know where it possibly has its origins. So, that's definitely key. Because, when you go over that way, you can really see the stars. I'm in Chicago, a lot of clouds, we're probably on the upper land and the northern. When the closer you get to the equator, you can see those stars. And then that's in that area. So let's go ahead and go more and more. Now, the Chaldean mystery system was that secret society in those days. They can map the stars off. They can almost predict your future. They were able to cast spells according. It looked as if they knew magic because they knew how to predict those stars. And they knew personalities. And they knew what to watch out for and what to look out for when it comes down to those stars and how it relates to this planet and what to look out for. So that's very important also. We got to put that into perspective. they knew. And don't think that these things have changed. Don't think that behind the scenes that this Chaldean mystery system is still not in play in some shape, form, or fashion. You know, I think it has something to do with the Illuminati, because in order to illuminate, you have to know these things. You have to be indoctrinated into the ancient mystery systems. And Chaldean mystery systems was one in which that came from. Now think about it, the Abrahamic religions, just as a note, where did Abraham come from? According to the Bible, Chaldea. Now, this is where all the divination and concepts of magic and how it got related to astrology. So you just don't think that this is dead. Don't think that they just disguise it in what you call religion. And then that's another topic. Now, here's something that we need to go ahead and discuss much more further. We know that in ancient Egypt, you got those 3 pyramids, massive structures built by man. Some say alien, but I'm strongly believing leaning towards man, a more higher, altitude of intelligence. Because they got everything else from studying these pyramids. Specifically the Great Pyramid, the tallest pyramid and the most massive structure on Earth, because it has tons and tons of rock just, precisely lined up and forming a triangle, like a quadrilateral triangle. And even if you go overhead, they got pictures of where you can see it overhead. It's phenomenal. So, also, this particular temple, tomb, whatever you call it, it's hard to decipher what the true purpose of the pyramid. And that's another discussion and another study. Because there's a lot, I would like to see what a lot of people think about what is the true purpose of the pyramid. Now, there's been temples dedicated to these constellations that the Egyptians made. So they didn't build something just freestyle and just, that's a nice piece of land, let's just build there. No, they had it all mapped out. They had it all leveled out. They had it all, they had the transit level right there. They wanted to see the land. They knew what it was about and its connection with the stars. Its connection with the stars. Among the first to develop what we know as astrology today. So Ptolemy, the father of Western astrology, that made up all of this stuff from the Greeks and the planets and all of this stuff, that switched it up, that stole the Egyptian religion and turned it into something else. That's where you got to understand that in order to develop this Western thought of astrology, guess what? They stole it from the Egyptians. It's obvious. And you can debate me, go on for days and days and tell me that astrology came from the Greeks, or astrology just all of a sudden magically just appeared out of thin air. I don't believe you. Because there's no proof to that, but there is proof of stolen knowledge implemented by the Greeks, taken from the Egyptians. Now we got to understand that what we got as Western astrology come primarily from the Greeks that stole it from the Egyptians. Now astrology is real. If this does not convince you, well, I got some more stuff that will. So this is just part 1, remember. So the Greeks and the Romans, they step in the picture, take it from the Egyptians, And then they see that it works. They see that this is magic. So we start building our buildings, the Pantheon, the Colosseum. Let's start building this based on the alignment of the stars and see how this works for us. So there is a science behind that, and that science is astrology. Now in those days, they ruled everything in the world. They conquered the Egyptians, they conquered the Persians, they conquered that whole facade, the known world. They were barbarians. They were killed for the fun of it. And today we know that the Greeks and the Romans, they are the founders of astrology as we know it. So the 12 signs of the zodiac, all of that was created by them off something real. Now don't get me wrong, there are 12 personalities. I don't like to say signs. Now a sign can be an omen. A sign can be a message. So think about that. And when you draw a chart and then you got a 90-degree what? Angle. Or 180-degree what? Angle. Why does angle sound like angel? So we can go deeper into that for on and on for days and days discussing that. But I'm not going to get deep into that as we go on. This is part one. Remember, the various use of astrology in the ancient world. Now we got to realize that as today, as we just shun it away, everybody is going to Joel Osteen's church, praising a God they can't see. Now, I'm not going to say anything bad about people, because I love people, but I hate people lying to people, committing this such a strong, painful atrocity. You wouldn't have lied to somebody above their very casket, above their very grave. I'm upset with that. Because, you know, people like that, they shun what's magical. They shun nature. They shun what science has to offer. The heart can be cold. And religion has been a gateway for these parasites to thrive on the naive and to thrive on the weak and the sick. Now, astrology was used to predict future events, like the almanac. You look at the almanac, astrology, the weather, and how things are, and how the climate change and all that has to deal with the alignment. Everything has been put together. So the earth is no separate than Mars. Mars is no separate than Venus. So when we understand the connection, we understand when something goes wrong on Mars, something very well might go wrong on Earth. Now everything is affected if something happens to the sun, because this is the solar system. So everything revolves around the sun. The sun is solar. So this is the system of the solar. So astrology was used to predict future events, such as the weather, when a storm is coming, the almanac, and rather the season would be right to plant. So there ain't no crops without studying the stars. Cultivate and harvest vegetation so we don't eat properly. So all of this has a connection. And we have to understand that connection, and then I'm here to teach some of that so you guys can have a profound understanding. And I'm here to bring you guys the business when it comes down to astrology. This is part one. Astrology was used to actually determine one's personality. I mean, they didn't have shrinks and psychiatrists and all of these diagnoses about schizophrenia or ADHD or these different illnesses that just came out of the blue from a European perspective when they're doing studies and experiments on real humans, testing medicine. I don't know if it would kill you or not, but they still tested it on you. There's instances where this has went too far. And those tests actually resulted in numerous fatalities. Tuskegee, for example. But I'm quite sure there's many more. It's swept under the rug. People died for the sake of experimentation. Now, astrology was real. Now, Western European psychology is real. When it just came out, it was invented. Astrology, it's natural. But now they're like, okay, you're crazy. It's pseudo. It's a pseudoscience. I mean, it's not real. You can't prove it. Because they done whitewashed it down, and due to public opinion, it has been demoted from a true science to just a newspaper, entertainment, in the newspaper entertainment section. Read your horoscope. Let me see what my sign got to say today. All of that is folly. And I'm going to attempt to go ahead and debunk all of that nonsense. Let's move on. Now, here's the time frame. We're going to go deep. Now, I'm going to go ahead with some facts with you guys. Now, ancient Babylon astrology, I think it's a little bit later. I think I said about 3200 BC. But proof, archaeological proof dates it from, could be as far as 4500 BC. And this is ancient Babylon. Now, I don't know if astrology was in 4500 BC, but we know there's proof that there was civilization there around that time, and also in other parts of Africa. And we just try to take Africa out of the equation, but African settlements and civilizations can date back even further. Ancient Greek and Rome, as I told you before, from the Egyptians, they were able to go ahead and take it over. From 2500 BC, let's say, to about 300 or 400 BC, about 2,000 years after, while Egyptians had reigned, supposedly, I think a little bit more further, for over 2,000 years. This was under Egyptian religion, Egyptian practices, Egyptian spirituality, Kemetic. We can name it that because Egypt itself is a construct, a word delivered from the Romans, from the Greeks, and translated into the Roman Egypt. So cultivated modern astrology, which comes to the day. That's what Greek and Rome, they were the fathers and the predecessors of what we call astrology today. Just a little bit more advanced. Just like as the language gets better, the understanding of certain things follow. So and it's great to have that understanding. That's why I'm going to walking you guys through step by step, piece by piece, to have some profound understanding of astrology. That way you won't be, you'll be an expert once you're done with this series. So let's go ahead. So I'm going to prove to you guys that religion started from astrology. You see, I got a few religions up there. I got Buddhism. Somehow there's a connection to the stars when you're dealing with being one with yourself and the earth and the universe. And, and understanding your divine chakras. You're understanding the peace that's within yourself when you do positions in yoga. There's a connection. And I can prove it. But, we're just going to go on with this series. And throughout, I'm going to go ahead and prove it. In Christianity, see, I got the cross right there. Why is it the cross? Why is there's two lines intersecting one another? Why are there perfect 90-degree lines all around? You can turn them around and make a box. You can make a square. You can intersect those lines at the top and you can make a 360-degree circle. You can make a triangle if you just cross and slant one point to the other, down and up, then we got a pyramid. The science is deep, and I think there's a tie-in to that with astrology. 12 tribes of Israel, 12 disciples of Jesus. It just go on and on with the numerology, the numbers and the coordinates. Even what you can't see beyond space and time, there's numbers that's embellished within the astrological construct. We got Islam. Then we got, you see the Mars right there. The science of it. What's the sign of Islam? A star and a moon. Astrology. Let's put it together. Why would I represent my religion as a star and a moon? Two representations of what's out there. There has to be a connection. And we're going to attempt to connect all of this today. And we're going to go ahead and let you know the truth about many things. Now, not today, but I'm going to go ahead and end this particular version of this. And we're going to go ahead and continue. And be back for another episode. And this is astrology. I'm going to introduce you guys to the science. And I'm going to let you know how it relates to what's going on today and how we're going to be able to overcome the spell that we're under. We're going to discuss various topics. And this is just one of many. Part 1. Peace and love. Hotel.